to me, one of the scariest things I look at sales projections that these companies put out
Hmm.
for their drugs in the
Hmm.
upcoming years. And as anyone might guess, they are projected to increase in sales year by year by year for many years to come. And
Yes.
I hope that doesn't happen. I'm just a little person over here with a hope, but I hope that does not happen. I hope these drug companies begin to lose money and they have to pivot and find a way to actually be helpful. Um,
It goes through cycles.
mm,
Definitely, it goes through cycles. So it's not been constant growth always, but at least the commercial, pharmaceutical market of the psychoactives. But it goes through cycles, ups and downs, and the markets themselves, meaning the targets, like you were talking about, the women, becoming a market, just like children became a market about 35, 40 years ago. They were never a market before, except
right.
they were always under 1% of kids were on some kind of psychoactive, usually benzodiazepine, a tranquilizer, to go to bed at night. Now it's about 12% of kids. So that's a lot of kids. It's about 1 in 5 adults. So 1 in 5 adults in America, probably depending on the age group, older kids more than younger kids. But I'm just trying to put some quick numbers. But I would say now it's about 1 in 9, 1 in 8 kids overall, like from 0 to 18. Although it could be 1 in 5 from 16 to 22 or something, But
Mm,
1 in 8, 1 in 9, maybe even, and that's for kids. For adults, I think we're getting close to 1 in 4. Certainly when you bring in the opiates, and
mm,
which were always kind of pushed aside, but they are prototypical
mm,
psychotropic drugs. I mean, the psychoactive, they're the master psychoactive drug after alcohol is opium, and there's no question about it.
mm,
As a painkiller, as a sleep inducer, as all kinds of things, it's incredible. And the difference between opium and, let's say, Zyprexa or Risperdal, or which antipsychotics, is that opium has been around much longer. And we know much more about opium than we know about the antipsychotic drugs, I dare say, which is that the advantage a lot of the illicit drugs, the older drugs, have is they're older. They're 2, 3, 4,000 years old. They have a huge history of use.
right.
And actually, there are many cultures of how to use them. Whereas most of the drugs we're using now in America to change our behavior are 50 years old, 60, 70 years old. So, in a way, there's just that aspect of it. It doesn't mean that we know everything about a drug because we've had it around for 5,000 years. But I feel that in many ways, some of these illicit drugs are actually safer. They're actually safer in their traditional way of using. They're safer than the prescribed drugs. Not necessarily all of them. It's how you use them, it's how much you use. But if I had to make a generalization, I would say opium is much more safer than Risperdal
Mm,
or Thorazine or Zyprexa or Seroquel, for some brand names of some drugs to really stun you.
mhm,
No question that opium would have to be safe. It's just the dry juice of the poppy.
mm,
So I'm saying that not to be sensational. I'm just saying that when you look at it, you know what is the devil in the drug that that's on this side. Whereas that newer drug, well, it's really new. It's just been studied on 3,000 people, and we broke all our rules during the clinical trials, anyways. So, and I can tell you a lot about that if you want. So, I'm not inclined to trust that drug rather than to trust that older drug.
right. Well,
So,
let's go there. I wanted to ask you that about I don't think a lot of people have clarity on exactly how drugs are approved of by the FDA, how they hit the market, what that looks like, and what type of rules have been broken in that process. So can you take us through that? I know it's a lot, but perhaps you could summarize what that process looks like.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna take a great risk to say for maybe the first time that it is a heck of a topic. Um, I recommend a few books. Probably, I would recommend books. I think I would look at a couple of books by David Healy, Healy. David Healy. He's a Welsh, British psychiatrist, and who's now in Ontario at a university in Ontario. Very well known fellow who has a good understanding of how the drugs are tested and approved, and especially the kind of information that you do not get that comes out of the clinical trial.